let's do it. Okay. Okay, slideshow. Okay, so let's see, we're going to talk about the mobile app again for about a half an hour. I wanted to give you a status of this. I did a pretty long presentation last year virtually about our plans for the mobile app, and I wanted to kind of go over that and how they've progressed since then. So first, a quick history of where we were and where we are now. So just to give you an idea, Wisconsin, Tyler, and I think Rob, I can't remember, demoed Wisconsin's ArcGIS Online AGO app for managing their short-term count collection program. Like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, they did a demo and it was really cool. And at the time, I really wanted to implement something like that in Jackalope, where we could actually continue the workflow from the count scheduler into the field and then back into Jackalope and just kind of have a closed loop of all scheduling activities. So that was cool. That was the beginning. And then last year, before users group, we had some really productive conversations with Melissa in Kentucky and their districts there, and came away with a really solid list of desired features that really clarified and put things together for me with regards to what this mobile app should look like. And so I demoed what I thought would be a good plan using exclusively ArcGIS products, with the intent that we would actually hire someone to do this work. We wouldn't devote any of our internal resources to this. It would be a totally external activity. And maybe the idea of being like almost a pooled fund where several states came in and say, hey, we want this, we'll split the costs, and that went over well, I thought, and there were a few people interested. And then Drew followed up with people with a questionnaire, and there were some pretty solid yeses. You know, Kentucky, Iowa, Idaho, and Wyoming were interested, and I mentally added Wisconsin to that list, even though Wisconsin has a workable system. What we could add, what they would get, what they don't have now is a seamless workflow between Jackalope and the AGO application. And so in my mind, I was going to trade basically their IP, you know, see if we could rip off their code base and even rip off their programmer that did it, and start from there and basically kind of give them the integration for free. And so I coordinated with Tyler in Wisconsin, and he gave me the person's info that did the work originally. And I also got buy-in from Wisconsin to basically, they didn't care that we were going to steal their ideas or anything like that. And you know, they were super helpful, and said that they would help however they could, you know, to get this project going, which I really appreciated. And then, of course, right after users group, I had my health issue, and that just completely stalled this. And actually, this application is, to me, the most heartbreaking result of my my stroke. And because we had momentum, we had all the pieces in place, things were moving along great, and then after that, it just completely died. So that's where we're at. And so this is to resurrect this and see if we can start over like we were basically going from last year. So this presentation, I just want to kind of, these are literally the same slides from last year. I've just cut it down quite a bit just to kind of get it back in people's minds. But let me see if I can minimize this. Every once in a while, stupid GoToMeeting minimize button goes away. There it is. So the design goals is to get rid of paper field sheets. You know, the idea that someone at the office gets their account schedule list for the year and then goes through and either prints one field sheet per count location, or maybe like in Kansas state they have, or Kansas's situation, they have like almost like an Excel spreadsheet field sheet where, you know, which is kind of like a to-do list for their field people, but at the end of the day, it's paper. And so they're getting a piece of paper at the field, and they go through and they, you know, maybe mark on pencil, or maybe there's an electronic copy, I don't know. But one of the main goals was get rid of that process, have it all completely electronic through an app, and also make it easier for the count people to get to where they need to go and to set up the counter. There's a lot of manual processes in most states with regards to what the field person has to do when they're at the site setting up the counter. Sometimes they've got to sketch a little sketch of the roadway and where the tubes are, you know, and all of that. So try to make that process easier, and then integrate all of the information back into Jackalope so that Jackalope understands when a count was taken. Because right now there is a bit of a gap. You send your field sheets to the field people, and then we get data files, but we don't, and we can tell you what site's been counted and processed through Jackalope, but we can't tell you what count's been counted but never processed through Jackalope. Right, we don't have that information. So we could actually get more QC information to the user and say, hey, this was scheduled, it was counted, it was picked up, but we never got the data. So it allows us to kind of close that loop as well. And then one of the desirable things was for at the field itself, when the field crew's out there, to be able to say, oh, this is supposed to be a 2-lane site, and it's actually a 4-lane site or whatever. And so do on-the-fly updates to site and intersections potentially, and then have it all be map-based, so they're just navigating a map. They're not navigating, you know, a grid thing like in Jackalope. It's going to be all spatial. And then real-time collaboration between the field and the central office. You know, the central office will know how the count season is progressing. They're going to see live updates on the map as things get counted. So that was kind of our main design goals for this, and this came out mostly from what we saw in Wisconsin and what we got from the districts in Kentucky. This was kind of a distillation of that. There's I can't remember, it was like an 8-page document from Kentucky of their wish list. So this is a very condensed version, but that's the general idea. So our plan was to use the ArcGIS platform. And they have a suite of apps that now are being mostly rolled up into this application called Field Maps, I think it's called. And basically it manages these various tasks that I just talked about. It allows people to navigate to the right place. It allows them to update attributes of the site. It allows them to update, you know, count statuses. Okay, I'm at this site, I just set the counter kind of activities. It allows them, and it allows you at the central office to get various graphs and grids, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Just totally drawing a blank on the right word, but basically like a landing page where they can get a summary of where their count season is progressing, what percentage of counts have been taken in this county, et cetera, that sort of stuff. So all that code's already been written, it's there, we wouldn't have to write any of it. And so we were going to use the ArcGIS platform. It is completely customizable between states, so this would not be a general product, which is both good and bad. It's good in the sense that you get what you want. It's bad in the sense that it's going to take time and resources on your end to make it all work, because we have to figure out what you want this to look like. The ArcGIS platform is cross-platform, so you can use it on your phone, on an iPad, on your computer, whatever. And one big thing, and this was a big Kentucky thing, was they needed it to work in offline mode because there's times they don't have access to the internet in certain places in Kentucky, and so they need to be able to have their list and then do all the changes that they need to do as they're setting up their counts, and then have that sync up to the main office when they're back in range of the internet. And I sort of mentioned this, most of this will be configuration instead of customization. So we're not writing code. We're basically, customizing, creating layers for the most part. And then most people use ESRI. Very few people don't have an ESRI platform already in their DOT. So it seemed like it would integrate seamlessly with that. So this is the current workflow for Jackalope count scheduling. So you create your cycles and groups, and then you associate your sites with one or more of those groups, and then every year you create your schedule, which is your list of sites to count. And then, every state's a little bit different, but field sheets get created and distributed to the right people. And then this cloud, if something happens, people are going out there in the field, actually doing the counts, scribbling on a piece of paper, handing those pieces of paper back to the central office. There's some process there that we don't have any control over. And then you guys run the data through Jackalope, and you decide if something needs to be recounted or not. If not, yay, we're done. If it has to be recounted, it goes back into that cloud that we don't know anything about. And so we really wanted to flesh out that cloud in the middle. Okay, quickly I'm going to go over the Esri products that we would use. Oh, this slide's out of place, but this is, I already talked about this. This is not just a buy this product and it works. There's going to be a lot of design between us because it is going to be state specific. Idaho's going to look different from Wyoming and all of that. So in terms of, we need to figure out what the schedule information that you want to record is, the schedule metadata, what the workflows are, and what the that's the word I was looking for, dashboard. What the dashboard looks like, what kind of information are you interested in seeing, and whatever other outputs that you want. So this is the main thing that we are going to be using, which is Esri. It used to be called Esri Collector. Now it's the app version of that is one component of field maps. And one good thing about having a year off from this is, at the time I did this, field maps was just released for the most part, and apparently it was super buggy. I don't know if that's still true. Maybe Tyler or someone from Wisconsin knows, but we've given it a year to mature, so that's a positive. But this is where they would go and they would do things like change the status. So they're going to navigate to someplace on the map. That we're looking at Wisconsin's existing AGO app right now. So they go to a green icon, and I have a better slide later on what all these means. But they'll go there, they'll click on it, and they change the status from pending to completed or in process or whatever. They do all that information here, and here's also where they could do things like modify site attributes if they want to. And this can contain any kinds of data. If you have barcodes, you can scan them. You can take pictures of your phone and associate it with the count site. And so collector is really where most of the work is going to be done. There's also an application called Workforce, which allows basically the central office to kind of divvy out the collection to various people. So this is kind of like the dispatcher. So the dispatcher can go and prioritize counts and say, I want this count to be done right now, and then load it into people's queue to do. And so there's two roles with Workforce. There's the dispatcher, which is the central office role, and then each field collector has their own, they will have their own list that the dispatcher manages. There's also something called Esri Explorer, and this is for annotation, like ideally taking away the need to scribble down things on a piece of paper and hand it back to the central office. This allows the field person to annotate the map and say, here's where the count was collected, and maybe scribble some notes on the screen with their finger and say, channel 1 is in the negative direction or something like that. Whatever notes your state requires for processing. And then they have a navigation app, which allows you so you have your list of locations to count over here, and it'll plan a route for you and make the field person's job a little bit easier. And then this is the promised Wisconsin screenshot. So this is what their app looks like now. So they have this key on the left over here, gives you an idea of the information that we're seeing. So the status of the count is what the marker represents. And so green means pending, so in various forms. So TC means the time, I think it's time mark. No, yeah. No, I have that wrong. Green is done. I'm sorry. Blue is pending. I have that backwards. So like this blue T means that the count, they need to set a time mark counter out there. And so each of their different device types has a different color, and they have a special designation for do it now. So the yellow P, and then these, as the field people go out to the sites, they click on the appropriate marker and then they change that status. So if they're at this point here, if you can see my mouse, they would click that marker and that would get them to the collector app, which I just showed you a second ago, and they would update the status from T to TP, time mark placed. And then when they came and set it up, or picked it up, I'm sorry, they would do the same thing. They'd click on the mark and they would move it to time mark completed. And so over time, their map gets more and more green and less blue, hopefully. And that workflow is really what we wanted to kind of borrow. I'll say borrow instead of steal from Wisconsin. This is just an example of what Kentucky wanted with regards to the dashboard, the word I couldn't think of. So just broken out by district, how many counts were assigned, how many have been done, what percent complete are we at this point throughout the year. So this just gives Melissa, whoever's doing the short-term count stuff, an easy gauge of how the collection program is going throughout the count seasons from May to November in Kentucky. Okay, the only code that will have to be written is on our side. Excuse me. Just as a reminder, so we have a product out there called JWS, the Jackalope Web Services, which is kind of like it's a REST endpoint for some of our data, and it's also what drives our Esri synchronization thing I showed before the break. So all of that is done actually in JWS. It's not done in Jackalope at all. And so currently what JWS does in the product that I just showed you is it synchronizes layers in Esri to tables in Jackalope. That's really what it does. It's a generalized application to basically synchronize Esri layers into Jackalope, but it's only one way right now. So the one code change we'd have to do is we'd have to make that two-way, because we need to get updates from the field crew as they're changing these statuses, and that will just happen based on the code we have now. That's no problem. But we also need to go the other direction. We need to update field crews, task lists, and things like that. And so we need to actually be able to push data into ESRI as well. So that's the second part, and that part would be new code. So this is the only place where we have new code that we, High Desert, would write. The rest would all be written by, or the rest would be configuration done by an Esri expert, not us. Preferably Tyler's Esri expert, since he's already done this once. And he, I mean, in the email chain between Tyler and him, he remembered Tyler, he remembered this job, so hopefully he would be a good resource. So just like, I mean, this is stuff I just showed you. All the synchronization is driven by our metadata table. So I showed you a little bit of that earlier. It does have to be bidirectional, which is new. We'll synchronize frequently, so that would be something we discuss between us. But how often do you want to be updated at central office from changes in the field, and vice versa? How quickly do you want changes done to your count schedule list to be propagated out to the field group? And then possibly we discussed, like, rather than letting the field crew just arbitrarily change any of your site attributes, it would be gate kept, just like the synchronization is now in the synchronization UI I showed you earlier. So none of those changes happen automatically. They happen at the operator's will, and that probably would be the case here. Just so, if the field person changed the number of lanes in the site, someone at your central office would have to basically approve that and push it through before it actually changed the Jackalope database. Okay, so this is the new flow. Sorry, it's a little messy, but basically the first three steps are the same. Pink is Jackalope, and this color is JWS, and this color is ESRI. So cycles are created, sites are associated with groups, and then you guys create the annual schedule every year, just like you do. But then behind the scenes, JWS would automatically synchronize that schedule to Esri's workforce and collector programs. So collector is what puts the little points on the map that are different colors, and workforce is what lets you organize that list of count locations into groups that you can give to your field group. And then there's that dispatcher thing too that allows you to optionally go through and prioritize count locations and things like that if you want to. And then field people go and do their stuff, and they update using the workforce and collector apps. They update the information, and then that information gets synchronized into Jackalope. So we know that counts are actually being completed at the field now, and we can expect those data files at some point. In fact, one of the maybe not in version 1 things, but in version 2 of this product, we thought it would be awesome if Jackalope could just like submit the data from the count with this record, but that requires some polling stuff, which we don't have yet, but that would be cool. So JWS synchronizes into Jackalope, and then right now the field people have to submit their data files to the central office, unless again polling is implemented. If we have polling ever, we could add polling here, and the mobile app can suck the data from the counter using our polling stuff, and then that would get submitted automatically. And then back in Jackalope now, central office validates the counts, just like before, and if it's accepted, of course, we're good. If it's a recount, it goes back into this blue thing. If you set it as a recount I think the only place you can set a recount right now is in AID. So if you set it in AID to do a recount, JWS would notice that, and it would update up to the workforce and collector layers in Esri. So that would be the new way of doing things. So let me think about that. So I think our next steps, I mean, first we need to see if the people that were interested before are still interested. But before I go into that, are there any questions, comments, etc.? Let me turn on my thing again so I can see comments. Oh, there's a couple comments.
I did. Well, this is Tyler Halverson.
Dashboard. If I'd been looking at my comments, that would have been really helpful. Tyler, don't interrupt. Thank you.
Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, yep, this is Tyler from Wisconsin. No, we have been still using that application, our field collection applications, and with their consultants, and it's still very handy. And there's always something new coming in where it makes it even easier, or makes their work and our work easier. But also looking at what you're trying to put together too, you do have some good ideas and thoughts on how to make it even easier through Jackalope and not having to like manually create. So every count season I'm manually creating some different file geodatabases or feature layers or symbology, and where some of that might become kind of generic or standard through Jackalope, possibly this. And
yeah, that would be my hope. Other people, I mean, for you guys, you get an updated JWS and hopefully do all the work that you have to do manually, make it happen automatically. That would be the goal.
Yep.
Yeah, and the app that you have right now, I think would be a great version 1 of this product. And I don't think, I remember it's been a year now, but I remember us discussing, and you told me it wasn't super expensive. You didn't pay $2 million for this. It was like,
I forget the exact price. I know when we did chat, I think we did have that, but
yeah, the number we documented was 150,000, which is way more, I think, than you actually said. But we put extra in there because experts are probably expensive and stuff like that. But.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, and that I believe, I think that was actually another Halverson from MSA that is still, I believe, working there. So I don't know if
cool.
You did mention you were still in touch with him or not, but
Yeah, I will probably get in touch with them after users group and the dust is cleared, and after we make sure people are still interested in it.
Mhm.
Not
One of the differences that I see that if we're able to do it is that in Wisconsin, you do need, like you were mentioning, annually, Tyler's doing some things to port the files and work with GIS. And if some of the states don't have an individual with those skills, it makes it a little more difficult to be able to do it the way Wisconsin is doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely helps you having some GIS knowledge within the traffic data unit for sure, even the highway data unit as well. But it would be having that experience definitely helped getting it implemented and using it annually.
Christy asked Tyler his was not using ArcGIS portal.
Yes, we are as well, which is in turn our ArcGIS portal is internal staff only can access it, where we're not sharing it publicly, where we have some data collections, like one in particular is our state trunk and local road networks. We keep that collection application on portal because we're not sharing it out to possible consultants or outside users. Try to give a little explanation of portal there in an example.
I remember when we talked about this last year, wasn't portal like super buggy or something, or someone was having a lot of trouble with it? Maybe it was Christy, I remember.
I know they do have their bugs, different little bugs that occur, and coincidence or not, but yesterday wasn't the first time I got some messages, Andy text messages, while in this user group conference, but some of the consultants weren't able to see their points, and I was like, oh boy, but that was on ArcGIS Online or Esri's site of.
Okay. Are your field crew using the Field Maps app?
Yes.
And is it working pretty well, do you know?
Yes. Yep. No, we haven't. I mean, I haven't had any complaints. I think Rob might be able to say more. He talks with the consultants more probably in person and as well as just communication. But I think it's making their lives easier, and we're able to get out recounts right away, same day. They can view it on within an application or their application, and being real time is very helpful.
Yeah, that's all true. There's no complaints. It's evolved since 2016 when we started using it real well. There's all kinds of now there's charting functions that are nice. There is an A to B, kind of a distance, how to get here, kind of like the workforce app you were mentioning, right in AGO that they can use, so they can put in a site ID, go from site A to site B, and it will tell them the best route to get there. There's always seems to be new information.
And it's all in one app now, right? You don't have to have 6 different apps on your phone.
And the charting is nice. You use some of all the items we had in the legend. You can see how many Wavetronic sites are left to collect at any point through the year, or time mark, and how many are done, how many recounts they have. So it's all in one application, and it's really helpful from a management aspect, program or project.
Christy wants you to go to Minnesota and convince their field staff that it's good. Train / convince them.
I just take Rob's route and force it on them. No, I mean, once they they start using it, I mean, I guess some people, maybe felt like they're being tracked or something, but we're not like tracking people, I guess. But just
right.
Once you get the use, it's handy and it's pretty intuitive and not very complicated to use.
Yeah, because isn't that one of the dispatcher functions? Is like if you enable it, you can like watch their every move if you want.
Well, I guess yes, you could do that. Yep.
I don't know why you'd want to, but yeah, I could see why they'd have some serious concerns over that.
Yeah. And we're seeing, I mean, we're seeing their work getting done with the counts and at the end of every week too. So we're, if we need to let them know, we're not, yeah, it's going good.
Well, it does allow the project manager on the consultant team to make sure their field staff's getting the work done as well. You know, so it works well on both ends. Less calls from WISDOT to ask them what's going on. They can monitor their own staff.
True.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, I mean, it's really all, you know, one of the biggest value and why I wanted to basically integrate your system for free essentially is you guys have figured all this stuff out. You've been using it for years, you know, and using you guys as the intellectual source for this would be really helpful. You guys know how it's done. All right, so let's see, how am I doing? 10:15. Oops, I'm over time, aren't I? Oops.
Well, but then we don't have Margaret, so that's okay.
Okay. Well, then let me just ask, are there any more questions that we can answer now? Our next steps is to reevaluate interest, make sure people are already still willing to go forward on this. I really am excited by this. It seems relatively low risk. Again, we're just basically taking something that is a proven product from Wisconsin and just trying to stretch it out to your guys' needs, which is pretty much configuration only, no new code except for that JWS piece for pushing layers into the thing that Tyler was just saying about him having to annually go through and create a geospatial set or whatever. We want to make that automatic. So, okay, there's been a bunch of comments here. Looks like, yeah. Oh, okay. So if there's nothing else, we'll be reaching out to people. I expect Drew / Lizzie reaching out to people to, you know, reconfirm interest, and then I will probably coordinate with the consultant that did the Wisconsin stuff and go from there. I have, you know, there's a million questions I have, and then we would start having meetings with the interested parties and go from there.